everyone, and welcome to this evening's edition of Literary Nights with Unsolicited Press. Before we begin, I want to remind everyone to smash the like button and the heart button. Subscribe to us on YouTube and follow us on Instagram. And if you have any comments or questions for our authors this evening, please feel free to put them in the comment section. We will see them in real time. Tonight we have Kerry Donoghue and Meriwether Clarke. Both have interesting books that they're going to be reading from. Kerry is going to talk to us about her book Mouth, and Meriwether is going to talk about Body Memory, which is coming out in 6 days. So thank you, ladies, for joining us this evening. Kerry and Meriwether, we usually go alphabetical order. So, Kerry, if you would like to start reading from your work, we would love to listen.
Awesome. Cool. Okay. I'm going to be reading from Mouth. And this is a story called Birds of Paradise. Oranges from the neighbor's tree hung heavy and low, pushing over the fence and into Camille's yard. Something rustled the dry palm fronds beneath the utility pole. 93 degrees and a stage 1 smog alert, summer in LA, a sepia-scape teeming with lizards and pillbugs, the endless surge and pop of Paleolithic tar. As she hid in the citrus-laced shade, Camille surveyed her progress. There was still so much to do. Shuffling into the sun along her suburban strip of lawn, she carried a trash lid loaded with dandelions and bent down, wincing when the pain seared her stomach again. It'd been months of this, 50 unwanted pounds and a burn like knife hits deep in the hollows of her belly. So she waited it out by counting red fire ants as they dashed across the concrete. Once the dizziness subsided, she knelt, as slow as a grandmother, ensuring her new acrylics didn't scrape on the scalded concrete, and ripped out a tattered agapanthus. That left her birds of paradise to firework green, tangerine, indigo, all straining angles against the patio. Their leaves had crisped into a yellow translucence, but the buds were firm and vibrant, each one gawking left, exasperated with the summer scorch. That thing's dead, Gage said, his chest sausage pink. Maybe you should let it go already. It's not dead. Check out the buds. I'm bringing it back. Or we could get you another plant. No, I want this one. I've been working on it forever. Look who's too cool. The coolest girl you know. Once he turned back toward the sun, she snipped off a bud and tucked it inside her pocket. Ready for the dock tomorrow? He asked, chugging a Slurpee. Nope. As Camille tipped a plastic watering can to the baked dirt, the water rolled away in quick rivulets. She ran her tongue over her lips. July left everything dry-mouthed. You sure you don't want me to go with you? I could be that handsome guy in the waiting room, cringing between toddlers. Camille smiled. Don't flatter yourself. Best friends since 10th grade, Gage and Camille had solaced each other through their suburban rage with mixtapes of Sonic Youth and Liz Phair. At their most rebellious, they'd chugged wine coolers in the park, maybe raided his Aunt Marina's weed stash. But they always made it to first period and eventually Cal State Long Beach. Now, 20 years later, both were still single, still renters, a bitterness that flared during bouquet tosses. They'd had one drunken moment 2 years ago, pressing close together while the moonlit waves lifted and sparkled under their Manhattan Beach pier. Haven't you ever wondered what could happen? But you're like a sister. Eventually stumbling onto a friend's futon later that evening. Hammered, they'd forgotten a condom and she'd let it go, trusting he was clean. Things were strained for a few weeks, but nothing a bumbling talk over margaritas couldn't fix. She'd been nervous until he grinned and swept her into a big bear hug outside Mahare's restaurant, saying, "We got that out of our systems." Although they remained close, escorting each other through the hilarities and humiliations of career successes and social failures, she'd never forgotten how safe it felt to sleep with his arm curling around her. After all those years when she tried so hard to come off unaffected, to bite back her jealousy every time she met one of his stupid new girlfriends, she had shown him what he really meant to her, and she was surprised by how she ached for him still. Undressed from the waist down, gowns open in the front, the nurse said. Dr. Langley will be with you shortly. She shut the door behind her. As a child, Camille couldn't wait for her 9 o'clock bedtime, the moment her parents closed the door after tucking her in. That click meant freedom, the chance to cartwheel through history books, romances, and legends, past the plastic confines of California, all the way to Stonehenge or Easter Island or the Gold Rush. Now, in a room where the sole reading material was how to do a breast self exam, Camille had to improvise. She stripped off her jeans and furtively hid her underwear inside them, folding the set with a precision known only to Navy SEALs and women at the gyno. Then she wrapped the paper gown around as much of herself as it'd cover, easing in the calming reveries of castles and courtly love. Knock, knock, Dr. Langley said as he entered. She shook Lancelot from her thoughts and crossed her legs protectively. Hello. Nice to see you again. He perched on the stool facing her. Camille sat close enough to smell the lunchtime curry clinging to his overcoat. Wait, did he remember her vagina? She tightened her legs. A male gynecologist. Men forever trying to get in a woman's pants. And the audacity of one thinking he could be an expert on it. The only reason she saw Dr. Langley was because she didn't have to take the freeway to his office. She rubbed her arms, the gown crinkling like a hamburger wrapper. So how old are you now? 36. Do you drink? She considered her debilitating hangover from the weekend, another 80-degree day slumped on the couch, inhaling pizza rolls and True Hollywood Story until her Pad CU arrived. If only In-N-Out delivered. Yeah, a few times a week. Are you a smoker? She could sense an evangelical background behind his gold-rimmed glasses as he studied her for tattoos, one too many silver studs dotting her ears. I might have a cigarette when I drink, she said. Or a nice tight joint on a Saturday when she needed to relax. And what types of pain have you been experiencing? My period has been off. I get intense cramps, can't keep breakfast down, random dizziness, plus I put on 50 pounds. Any chance you could be pregnant? She snickered. I haven't been with anyone in 2 years, so if I'm knocked up, we're going to need to place an emergency call to That's Incredible. I'm sorry? Oh boy, her anxiety was gunning for it now, straight to inappropriate laughter. What treachery, this instinct that crutches at funerals, or crested at funerals and love scenes in Colin Firth movies. Her face burned. It's a show from the 80s? Fran Tarkenton was one of the hosts? He shook his head and patted the wax paper exam table. Scoot to the edge and relax. The stirrups, the cold mental instruments, the fact that he could sport a headlamp during the exam, she grimaced. Who could possibly relax knowing their most delicate parts were about to get invaded by salad tongs and a scrape? Camille kept her Skechers on so she'd feel less vulnerable, spread open before someone's face, a sensation she'd enjoy any other time. Are you interested in having children? She held her breath as he inserted the speculum. Not sure. I haven't really thought about it. Well, you're 36. An entire adulthood spent trying to dodge date rape, herpes, married men. How many hours of her life had she spent consoling her friends through those crises? Most of them had eventually found love and paired off, tucking away their ugly memories like wings that had forgotten to fly. Camille had been so careful, except for that one time with Gabe, and considered herself lucky to come out unscathed. Guess I just haven't met the right guy. A magazine photo of Tom Cruise had been taped to the ceiling, all squinty and cocksure. Nothing like a mini alpha with an alien overlord complex to really calm a woman. Instead, Camille envisioned her old go-to, Val Kilmer, all greased up, flexing in the volleyball scene from Top Gun. Dr. Langley slid out the speculum, and just as she was about to exhale into the tanned glory of Iceman stretching up and over the net, the doctor went back in with 2 fingers. A Cosmo article once said, not wrinkling the forehead would help an anxious woman relax down there. So she shut her eyes to the gelled strands draping Tom's smug grin and unclenched her teeth. Iceman. The room smelled of bandages and lubricant. Right there, Dr. Langley said, pushing harder on the left side of her abdomen as his fingers probed. That's concerning. Thank you.
Wow, I definitely want to know what is concerning.
It's not going to end well.
Okay, we'll get back to that. And do we actually have a little bit more time if you want to read a little bit more, or
Sure.
another beginning of another story?
Let's see. I guess I could just read the next like couple pages of it.
Okay.
Okay. So this is like right after. Camille had parked at the edge of the lot near a low concrete wall. Panicking from the driver's seat, she stared at the cracked asphalt of Colorado Boulevard, its tarry veins scarred by the weight of pedal-heavy Rose Parade floats and weekend cruisers. Beige exhaust shrouded the valley basin, while million-dollar homes glitzed the mountainside higher and higher, ruthless grabs for any kind of downtown view. As the heat waves shimmered around her, she flipped through the pamphlets the nurse had stacked in her hand before she left: uterine cancer, cysts, reproductive disorders, and called Gage. "Hey," he whispered into the phone. "I'm at lunch with Hot Girl from the 10th floor, third time this week." Camille recoiled like somebody had licked her cheek. 3 times and he hadn't mentioned her until now? That's great. She's also seen all 5 original Planet of the Apes movies. And which one's her favorite? The first one, obviously, before the makeup got bad. Her laugh sounded like a tennis ball bouncing across an empty court. She sat taller, hoping she hadn't rattled the mass. "Tomorrow I'm taking her to that belly dancing joint you love in Glendale," he said. "Anyway, how'd the appointment go?" "It was all right." "Did the doc stick you on a no booze, no carb diet? If so, let me know so I can find a new best friend." No, it's just some lady problems." "Like what?" "Are you going to give me another exam right now?" "Cut the shit, Camille. What'd he say?" She cracked a window. "He felt a mass in there and wants to get it checked out. I'm going for a CT scan tomorrow." "Does he think it's cancer or something?" "Gage, do we really need to talk about tumors during your date? I'll be fine. It's probably just fibroids. Go, have fun. I'll talk to you later." "I don't like this." "She's waiting for you." "Promise you'll call if you need anything?" "Don't worry about me," Camille said, pulling the phone from her mouth so he couldn't hear the edges of her voice crack. "I'm tough."
Wonderful. So, Meriwether, on to your work, the body memory, which is going to be born in 6 days. Can you tell us
Woo!
a little bit about that and about your book and about what you will read?
Yeah, thank you so much for hosting this, Rosalia. And Carrie, that was amazing. Thank you. I'm glad that we got a little bit more because I was like my seat. So I'm going to read from Body Memory, which is my debut poetry collection. And it is coming out in 6 days, which is super exciting. So I'm going to start with the first poem in the collection, which is one of 2 poems titled September. September. It's early autumn morning. 2 swallows fight for sound and space. By afternoon, hawks will circle and no one will want to sit outside. Fencing splits the field in half. Crickets and cicadas sing. I miss the city unexpectedly. There is so little space there, but so much to see, and all my friends who once lived so close. I think of them as a child remembers learning to walk. Do children recall such things? After all, the body moves before it learns to speak. And without words, what can there be of memory? Without memory, what can there be of days? The next poem is called Prayer. Thank you. I was raised Catholic and I actually went to Catholic school for most of my my entire elementary and high school education. So there's 2 Catholic school poems, and I'm going to read both of them. Well, they're actually not explicitly Catholic school, but they're Catholicism adjacent. This one's called Prayer. He sees everything, they reminded us in Catholic school. He sees the inside of your desk, your mouth when you chew, your body under blankets. He doesn't sleep because in heaven, day and night don't need to exist. There is light, but no sun, garlands of stars, but no dark sky to pin them to. As a child, I always drew during church. I sketched rows of women while the priest spoke. They all had big, soft eyes. Some were tall, some with hair to hide behind. Their dresses touched the ground, the place where bare feet kissed an earth that looked back up all the way from the porch to the edge of the hem-deep river. This next poem is called Some Little Girls, and it references, I think, a story that probably all of us know, which is the murder of a beauty queen, JonBenet Ramsey, which I think is unfortunately still not solved. But it was a big story in the era and continues to be. Some little girls. Some little girls are expendable, it seemed to me, 5 years old and lying in bed as my father closed my window. A week before, a preteen in Tulsa was lured out of a slumber party by a strange man, stolen and strangled. I barely knew what the second word meant, strangle, but felt it in my throat like swallowing a piece of rope as I said it out loud. Only a year later, JonBenet disappeared. Her face on the cover of People magazine was that of a small woman's, crowned and golden hair. Like a cherub, the lady in the checkout line said. Horrible, my mother replied, covering my ears. My lips were not her lips, so perhaps I was safe. Perhaps only angels are destined to die, I thought, searching my back for something like the bud of wings. To hold. At the museum, I count the number of times the Virgin Mary went to heaven. In almost all, her palms are straight and tightly clasped as she ascends. Later versions give more warmth to her serenity, face rounder but still placid as a drying lake. Only one image is dedicated to her birth. I stand before it, my fingers unsure what to do in a room of so much not to touch. Little Mary lays in a nursemaid's arms. The most I can see is the crest of her head, even then awaiting its halo. Her mother lies exhausted on the bed, her hands more limp and downcast than her eyes, as if she was tired already from knowing what she bore was not hers at all. Siphon. I would like my body to be less intrusive, less protruding. I would like to fit into the cast of a body smooth and lithe, able to flatten against walls and slide under doors. I would like to sleep on the ground and be barely seen, peel myself up in the morning and walk like a shadow, all edges, all length, throughout all the day. The floor would never crack beneath me. Chairs would never sag. How light the wind would think, pushing me along. I would be like girls from the magazines, where the models are so thin. Their pictures make me wish I could sink into myself, the way they sink into themselves, the way the ground in Arizona sinks into itself when water is taken from beneath it and it becomes concave and houses fall, and then there is nothing left. Thank you. You guys are such a nice audience. Okay, I'm going to move to the second section of the book. This poem is called Runaway. A painting of my mother hangs in the dining room. She waits all day for me to come in. I watch her watch me eat each meal, her face frozen at 22, mine older every second. At night, I walk to the crossroad where I saw her last. Don't shout, don't follow, I say aloud, imitating her gravel voice. It is only then that I remember how she once looked, gray and solemn, walking toward woods filled with cabins she said were charnel houses, and rivers she promised would someday flood into lakes. My dress covers skin, covers creases and curves no one knows exist, drapes at my waist, falls to the ground and sweeps over my knees like a curtain. In this field am I light? Does the sun make me glow? Is this how bulbs feel beneath lampshades, hot and unsure how to be turned off, but wanting it, wanting the moths to stop circling, stop butting their heads into this heat that is not theirs? Okay, let's see. My plants enjoy the solar eclipse.
Mhm.
They have no retinas to burn or eyesight to lose. Underneath the ground, they taste soil instead of looking up. Sometimes it's so hot here, the wind disappears mid flight. Bare feet cackle on the baked sidewalk. The mountains hold candles in chains. I pull burnt leaves off the tomato vine, and it feels as if the whole world is watching. Okay. This next one is called Follow the Leader. Follow the leader. Someone once told me girls who develop too soon are like dolphins, always wet and speaking in tongues no one understands. Their breasts learn early, though, they are not like fins. There is no underwater flight for things the shape of little earths. There is only digging by mouths that smell of damp grass and water that makes you float face down. It's no surprise it's hard to trust men who want to touch me. In dreams, I burn comic books and Renaissance paintings, anything with women the shape of finely tuned guitars. In real life, I lunge across my bedroom to tighten my thighs. I trace figure eights on car windows. I wear braids coiled around a milk clear gaze. Okay, I'm just going to read 3 more poems.
Okay.
How to be happy. Watch bees closely. See how they always have so many to come home to. Imitate that hunt for sweetness, that purposeful flight. But sing, don't buzz. Wear your ankles like a swan's neck. Forget hurtful things that people say. Stop imagining your face is a bruised piece of fruit at all. Let someone touch you to make things better. Wear a veil on your wedding day. Have a wedding day. No longer gaze at roadside motels and wish you could live there. Roll the windows up and remind yourself that even there you'd be somewhere impossible to run from. Even there you'd be here. This penultimate poem is the title poem from the collection. It's called Body Memory. In the dream, we're on a bed together, close but still, with air between us. For once, you don't want more than skin against skin, more than your chest seeping into my back. I'm in the body I had when I was 10, the year before men started honking, and Joe at the corner store told me I'd develop soon enough. I wonder if, to you, I'm the same as always, as if the woman you love is really a girl with a round moon face and hair she doesn't know what to do with. I could cry if I were awake, seeing myself there, so small. What I always wanted, what I didn't know I once had, to be inconsequentially lovely, an ephemeral light that no one sees until it's entirely gone.
Hmm.
And this last poem is one of my favorites. It has a long title. It's called "At a Gas Station in Vermont with My Best Friend P." P like as in plant. Not that it really matters. We go to buy juice box wine and Cheetos made of fire. Their dust is glitter light against our skin. I love how we laugh down the aisles, wear beautiful shoes. Our calves deserve to be kissed by gorgeous men, but instead we have fluorescent lights and each other. Outside are too many trees to count and a river we stand in. Shadows of the question, what to do next, shimmer on the surface until we break them with curved and tender feet. This is the first time I've ever felt young, standing inside a small sea with someone who believes me when I call it a small sea. What I mean, you know, something to love we won't try to hold. Thank you.
Woo!
Thank you. Thank you both for reading such powerful work
Thank you for
tonight.
hosting.
So now is our Q&A section, and I would like for both of you to answer what inspired each of your works.
Go for it.
You want me to go? Okay.
Sure.
Well, I've had sort of a lifelong obsession, honestly, with uh, the relationships that people have to their bodies.
Mhm.
In I think I have a limited perspective on the gendered element of that relationship, but that's something that definitely is relevant to my work. Um, I am curious in this book, and I think in my work on the whole, to answer questions related to the sort of identity formation that one experiences as related to their physical form, the sort of trauma experiences, the sexual awakening, the body dysmorphia that a lot of people experience. So this book is sort of a large tent, I think, that was inspired by all of these sort of long-standing obsessions that frankly have not entirely gone away from writing the book.
I also went to a Catholic elementary and high
Oh,
school, and I remembered I had forgotten until you read your poem that we were
yeah.
told that God sees everything, no matter what.
It's
And
so
when you read that poem, it was like all those memories came back. And I remember being extremely worried if God saw me in the bathroom because he sees
yeah,
everything, you know.
absolutely.
So that
Absolutely.
that poem brought back a lot of those memories. So what was it about being in that environment for 12 years
Yeah.
that inspired some of your work?
That's a great question. I mean, I think a lot of the sort of like extreme stereotypes about at least female gender experiences are seen in a lot of biblical stories. I mean, we have the archetype of the Virgin Mary as this sort of like perfect woman, or at least extremely holy woman. Um, and so I think that always sort of struck me, the fact that there is this singular female figure, almost singular. There are a few other women, but she gets the most attention. Who we talked about in class, who we read about in like religious homework, that kind of thing, over and over again. And yet her experience was so limited, and her identity was like so defined by her being the mother of God. And of course, that's like an extremely big identity. Those are like big shoes to fill. I'm not trying to, I actually really love the Virgin Mary. I think she's like a fascinating historical figure and cultural figure. But it was something that I think always, at first I liked and I was sort of mystified by, but then ultimately sort of bothered me the older I got. I think also as I've gotten older, I've thought a lot about how, while I have so many dear friends that I can consider myself still close to, who I made in my Catholic school days, there are definitely elements of that education that I'm not, like, if I had a child of my own, I'm not sure I would want them to have. And I think one of them is definitely related to a lot of the sort of gendered lessons that you're told. The, of course, kind of rampant homophobia, the just sort of really sort of specific identities that people are expected to have. And so I think that's something that's also reflected in my work. I mean, these are things that identities that I'm always sort of questioning and wanting to learn more about. And I do think that they are something that, when taught to kids at a young age, can really make an impression, for better or for worse.
It's funny because it wasn't until I got to Italy to
Mhm.
see what was going on there with the Mary character that I realized that the image of Mary presented to Americans is very different from
Mhm.
the Mary presented around the world.
Yeah.
And to give you an example, in Taormino, there's a church way at the top of the
Mhm.
mountain that my brother, my sister-in-law, and I climbed like 1,000 steps to get to.
Mhm.
But when we got in there, that Mary was voluptuous. She
Oh,
had
I love that.
earrings on. She had earrings on and
Yeah.
makeup. She had gold earrings, and she wasn't modest like her. She was
Mhm.
very sexy
Oh
as a
my
statue
gosh.
in the church. And in another town, Edici, there are Madonna paintings all over on the walls that were done in like the 5th century or some bizarre
Uh-huh.
ancient time where Mary is shown actually nursing her child with
Wow.
one covered and one not. And
Wow.
there were cookies in that area. It's called Agatha's breast. The cookies is in the shape of a breast with a cherry as the nipple.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so the American tradition is very Protestant compared to
Yeah.
what is presented in,
Yeah.
um, yeah, and that's also the place where Jesus is black in Sicily,
Uh-huh.
in the Palatine uh, um, chapel. Jesus is brown,
Wow.
and it was very very eye opening
No, that
when I
is
got.
eye-opening. I feel
Yeah.
like, in American culture, the sort of like sacrificial element of Mary is really highlighted. At least in my school, that always seemed to be what we were talking about. But you're right. I think in other Catholic cultural traditions, there is a power to how she's at, a sort of reverence that is less seen here. And I love this. I've got to go to those places and see
You've
those,
got to go.
that
I'm
art.
telling you,
That's
you've got
really
to go
interesting.
because it's a totally different
It is.
Mary,
Yeah.
and women there are totally different. They're the women saints. Their
Uh,
humanity has not been erased. So
wow.
it's, and speaking of humanity and women's issues, Carrie, talk about this incredible story. It's very clear from listening to it that your main character is in love with her best friend and doesn't ever want to say it. So talk about how the story came about and the deft way that you sort of characterized her repression very well. You
Oh,
know,
thank you. Yeah, I mean that's I am, if like speaking of obsessions, I'm obsessed with other people's obsessions and like the secret hungers that we all have. So each of the stories in this book is a different way we hurt each other with our mouths, right? So there's like disordered eating, there's alcoholism, infidelity, like consuming myths of motherhood or womanhood. Um, and so I just found it so interesting to like, she's got this best friend and they're best friends, but he does not know this part about her. And like, how do we as people have relationships? Like, can we ever really know someone? So I think each of the main characters in these stories, they're all struggling with like trying to get what they want, but being too scared to, and just that idea of like not being able to live who they really are, which is so heartbreaking to me and so interesting. And so I think I keep coming back to that. Yeah, and speaking, yeah, when you're talking about all the religion, like I was also raised Catholic.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and so it's like, yeah, like Jesus is watching you sleeping, like the whole thing, you know? So I think for me, there's a real push and pull between like sex and shame, like shame and vices.
Yeah.
And I'm very interested in really digging that out.
Well, the Catholic Church for a very long time told people that that they can only go to heaven if they enter the priesthood or the convent. And then it was only after parents pretty much, you know, riled about that they changed their attitude and said, well, you can also go to heaven by being parents, you
Yeah.
know. Like, oh, we'll just concede.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, if it weren't for people, yeah, meanwhile, it's like, and everybody has a different view. I remember when birth control came out and they asked some Italian woman what does she like, the Pope came out against it. And what does she have to say about that? And she said the Pope doesn't play the game, so he doesn't make the rules. So I really thought that was incredibly funny, but incredibly true. Like, why is this celibate man telling women
Yeah.
what they can and cannot do?
Creepy.
And also repression and oppression is really big.
Mm-hmm.
Like what would your character lose if she came out and told Gage how she really felt?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like that interesting like self-repression. Like how much do we repress ourselves?
Mm-hmm.
And turn that in against ourselves.
Does the character have a sense of shame about what is ailing her? I sort of got a sense of that, but it's hard to know until the story, I guess, continues.
It's a great question. I feel like she has shame around her own vulnerability.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens, it gets very dark. But it's also kind of like a moment where she can come out and like be herself, like be who she really is. So it's like a dark victory, I guess.
No, illness can do that. Like it makes you look at things differently.
Yeah.
Especially if it's got the scare of being the thing that ends you, like if you have only a finite amount of time that you even know of left, you
Yeah.
tend to want to live your life to the best that you can.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So, Carrie, I'm intrigued with the idea of hurting people with by your mouth, because people say many things that are hurtful, even though they don't mean them in the minute, the moment of anger. So are there any stories in your book where like verbal abuse or what we don't say? The part of the offertory is forgive us for what we've done and what we failed to do. I've always been intrigued by what we fail to do. In your character, she fails to tell Gage what other failures does she have, and it seems like we hurt each other through our mouth because of what we fail to say or what we fail to do. Is that a honest assessment of the stories?
Yes, I think so. Yeah, or maybe not as much like the verbal abuse, but the saying one thing but not meaning it, meaning
Mm-hmm.
another, which also feels like a loss, just like empty words or like stuffing it inside, sometimes literally, sometimes figuratively, just we've all got our hungers and our coping mechanisms, and like bringing those to light. Like we're all pretty freaky people, and we might try to like play it off, but we're not. But like, I'm so curious about what makes other people freaky, because that's how we get through this life.
Yeah.
Well, and the other thing is how to rise up, and there's all those other things that are like redemption and stuff. So does your character find any redemption with her dark victory, or does she just self-advocate and stop self-oppressing.
Yes, she definitely just lets it rip at the end, and it's kind of a frightening moment, but it's also like that idea of like, well, honestly, I would probably do the same thing, like there, but for the grace of God go I. Like, I think these are characters that are just like us, like it's not that far off to think of. I don't want to ruin it. I don't want you to also have this in your Google history, but what happens is pretty wild. But I feel like it's something like I would do it. Like I could see myself doing it. So it's a balance,
One of the things I commend you on is actually putting on paper the entire gynecological exam.
It's the worst.
It's the worst.
It is the worst.
Yeah.
But you managed to put it on paper with such deftness, and such economy.
Yeah.
And how long did it take you to write that scene?
Not long, because I was like, we're just gonna walk you right through this, everyone. Because it's an appointment I dread, and like I remember the Tom Cruise thing came when I was home from college, and I had to go to my mom's doctor one day, and I was like, there, and I was like, what is that? Tom Cruise looking down on me.
That is so funny.
Yeah, the headlamp, everything. I was like,
well,
you're gonna be in the story, sir.
Well, your character is hilarious. That's the other thing. She's absolutely hilarious. Like.
Funny.
Yeah, I think they just me uses humor just to like, get through as like a coping mechanism, I guess.
Well, your character does use that same coping mechanism.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, excuse me, I'm getting over a cold. So, Meriwether, talk about. You said that there were sections in your book. Can you talk about those sections?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. I did. When I was writing the book, originally there weren't sections, but then when I was revising and ordering the poems, it helped me in terms of sort of trying to like encapsulate the project or like hold it all in my head at once, to start to think of the sections as sort of loosely chronological. Which I say like emphasis on loosely, because this is not a book where there's like a poem for every year of this girl's life or something like that, or the various speakers in the collection. But it helped me sort of begin to, I guess, like I said before, hold the whole project in my head. And I do think it actually helped make it more readable. So the first section is kind of poems that are relevant to that deeply uncomfortable sort of like puberty transition where your body's starting to change. You're very aware of how the world looks at you differently, how you look at yourself differently. Suddenly you have all these sort of like very damaging media voices in your head about what beauty is, how important beauty is specifically for girls, etc. And the second section is kind of like a young adulthood, I suppose, like teenage years, young adulthood, kind of development of some of those original themes that were in the beginning of the book, but looking at it from a slightly more mature perspective, sort of, early experiences with physical intimacy, the kind of ways in which that can go south when consent isn't always addressed, or when, both parties aren't sure of the boundaries of each other's bodies, that kind of thing. And the last section, it's not like it's the end of someone's life, but I would say the last section is poems from the perspective of someone who is more of a solid adult. I don't think it corresponds to any one age group, but the speakers in those poems, I think, are speakers who are attempting to make amends, or sort of make peace, I should say, with some of the things that haunted them earlier in the collection. And it's someone who I think is also looking at the world with a little bit more of a, I don't want to say pessimism, but just sort of accepting that there is like an inherent unfairness in the ways in which our society expects bodies to look and behave and be treated. And there's sort of damaging hierarchies at play there too.
So how did you come up with the body, body memory, that whole concept?
Yeah. I was just, I think the poems in this collection, like a few of them are autobiographical, but many of them are sort of imagined experiences, like not things that happened to me. I think though, in continuing to like write about bodily experiences, I personally couldn't help but reflect on the ways in which our bodies are just sort of these stored vessels of all of these different physical memories.
Yeah.
And there's like such a deep connection with um our own in like identities and our emotional and psychological states. The memories that are held within us physically, I think, are related to that. um I think like a lot of writers and probably people in general, I think about my childhood a lot. And I think I just, the older I get, the more interesting and more sort of relevant it seems to me to think about the ways in which we are sort of constantly connecting to like versions of our past selves. And I guess the idea for the book partially came from, I don't think that's something that like we ever talk about as a society. I mean, like everyone's busy at their job with their family, living life. Like it would be weird if like you brought this up to your coworker, but I still think that like American society is so fast paced, so focused on the sort of end goal, just checking things off the list. And other cultures I think can be like this too, but specifically American society. I don't think there is always room to reflect on this, especially I think for women and people who have sort of other gendered experiences. They're just like, isn't this conversation that I think maybe we would all benefit from having?
Was there a section that you really enjoyed writing? Because like when you read that line, like she's 10 and the guy at the corner store, like, yes, that's exactly it. 10.
Yeah, I know it is there. Yeah, I did find myself going back to like certain ages, like 10, 11, 12 a lot. Just like in my personal memory. But I remember a previous version of the manuscript. A friend read it and was like, the number 12 comes up a lot. Like, did something happen to you when you were 12? And I was like, not really. It is that sort of like that handful of years is like a very sensitive, precious time. And suddenly I think part of it is that it's not just you are personally changing, but especially for girls, suddenly like men are interacting with you in a very different way.
Yeah.
Which is like, can be pretty traumatizing because like you're literally a child. The question, I lost track of the question. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, super interesting. I was asking if there was a section that you liked writing.
Oh yeah. I really liked the first section, honestly. I think maybe to a certain extent because it felt furthest away from like my life now. But I mean, I wouldn't say that there were upsetting thoughts and memories that came up from writing that section, but there was also something I think pretty cathartic. And like so much of the process of writing, I think I figured out ideas that I'm sort of haunted by or that I'm curious about through continuing to return to similar themes and those sort of like early year poems.
That's awesome.
So let's talk a little bit about your writing process, and you can answer as you wish. Number one, do you write every day? Do you keep a journal? What is your process when you sit down to write?
Is this for me?
Both of
Or
you.
both? Okay. I do not write every day. I wish I had time to. When I used to teach, and when I taught, it was a little bit easier to have like large chunks of the year that were dedicated to writing. In my current work life, for most of the year, there's a few days a week that I'm able to write. And then there is sort of like a 3-month period when work is very busy, when writing is quite difficult. So I try to sort of like hole up kind of logistical projects for them. Like do all my submitting or, sort of like less thorough revising, that kind of thing. I do have a journal. It is like the worst written thing that you could imagine. It's just like emotional vomit of just like needing to get something on the page. Occasionally, like I'll have an insight that makes its way into something more composed, but it's more of just, I think, like a catharsis for me, at least. What about you, Kerry?
And Kerry, what about you?
My writing process is chaotic. Like in the morning, so I've got 2 kids. And so like in the mornings, get them to school, and then I take a walk with my headphones in before work, just to kind of like think about like what I'm going to work on for my manuscript or something to do with writing. And then I will also, then I work and, all the stuff during the day. And then at night, like I start writing at like 10. Wow. So yeah, wow. It's not great. So that I've just come to accept that's how it is right now. And that's just the baseline. But I do try to like basically use that morning time to like set an intention to be like, okay, today I'm going to look at Excel and submit something or whatever. But something based or something that to do with writing I do every day if I'm not actually writing.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think I subconsciously sometimes fall into that too, where it's like you're not always in the headspace or of the time, but you can like try to do something. Have you always been a nighttime writer?
Yes.
Or is that, I love that. I've never been a nighttime writer. So I find I'm like, I've always been sort of jealous. There's something romantic about that.
I'm a nighttime writer as well. I'm always jealous of those 5 a.m. club people who get up at 5 a.m. And I tried it for like a month, and I just was sitting there half asleep because my brain just was not working. And I realized, 5 o'clock's not working for me.
Mm-hmm.
So, what about reading? Like, do you read during the day? Do you I know as a writer, I usually am reading multiple books at the same time. How do you read like a writer? Do you keep a journal so that when you're reading something that inspires you? So tell us about your process. So how do you get it all together?
How to get the manuscript together?
Well, no, your whole process. Are there any writers that inspire you? That you find yourself mimicking or at least echoing in your own work. Oh, I'm so sorry. That's what I meant. Sorry about that.
No, it's okay.
Yeah, I guess I can go. I do read every night before I go to bed. So it's pretty late, and I guess I like to read things that I'm not writing. So if I'm working on a novel right now, so I try not to read novels, or I like to read a lot of nonfiction just to kind of get inspiration. And I don't have a journal, but I do have like a lot of like half-lit photos from bed that I take when I'm reading. So that seems to be easier than like journaling for me right now.
Yeah, I've done that. You like see something on the page that you're like, I have to remember this. So you take a photo of it, and then of course you it gets lost in all your photos. I read pretty much every day. Yeah, oftentimes in the evening, like after dinner, before I watch a little bit of TV. Sometimes right before bed if I don't read before then. And it's really sort of a constant juggling of actually really love to read fiction. So I read fiction. To me is like just an escape into a pure escape into a different universe, which increasingly I really want. And I also read a lot of nonfiction and poetry. I would say that I don't read poetry every day, but I'm more likely to read an entire book of poetry at once than partially because it doesn't take as much time as reading a 600-page novel. But also I think because for me, it's something that I'm reading as someone who wants to enjoy the work and the ideas that it presents itself with. But I also am thinking about it from a writerly perspective. It's easier if you can do it all at once, I think.
I've always been inspired by reading poetry. You know, in fact, some of my short stories have been inspired by poems that I
Oh,
had written, and just reworked. You know, either used the point of view or the persona narrator or something.
oh, I love that.
So a lot of aspiring writers will actually watch our show
Oh,
every other week. So what is some what is some advice that you want to give to someone who is aspiring as a writer, maybe dreams of having that book published? What advice do you want to give them?
hmm. I don't know if this counts as advice, but I think it's really helpful to just know that writing is extremely hard for everyone. Like, I think that so many of us, I used to think about this. Well, I still think about it all the time. Like, it doesn't really matter what stage of your career you're in. It is just like a fundamentally it is intellectually difficult. It is emotionally difficult. It is hard to make it work in a schedule that, an adult has, like, when you have obligations and work and family. So it's something that I've always found comforting to think that it is not you. It's what it is. It is the most enriching and wonderful way to experience the world, but it is not meant to be easy. And if you were finding it not easy, that's like a good sign, I guess.
We've all looked at that blank page
Yes.
and suffered through that blank page. And
Yeah.
Carrie, what advice do you have to aspiring writers?
Um, I mean, it took me like 14 years to get this book out. So my perspective is slow and steady. I feel like, Instagram, and you're going to see like 30 under 30 and like all these like upcoming writers, and there's so much noise and it's hard to break through that. So I would say, like, keep your blinders on, focus on your page, and don't expect it to be like instant publication. Like, it's a long process, and that's a good thing.
That is great advice.
Yeah, if it makes anyone feel better, all the writers when Edgar Allan Poe, all his contemporaries sort of made fun of him because he was very poor, and at that time you had to get dressed up to go out to lunch, and he didn't often have the money not he didn't have the money to go out for lunch, and no one remembers who those writers were now, even though they were popular then. They remember Edgar Allan Poe.
Yeah, he's like very famous. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
every school
So
child reads Edgar Allan Poe at some point. Yeah, that's good.
So
That's a
I
good point.
try to remember that when I see all those other people, when I see all those 30 under 30, and I'm
Yeah.
like long past 30.
Yeah, me too.
No, it's so easy to compare yourself to others, which is so often just an exercise in like self-hate. So yeah, that's great
You're right.
advice.
Yeah, and I
Yeah,
just
'cause
oh, go
people
ahead.
are comparing themselves to a finished product, not
Yeah.
to the draft of discovery that you're doing.
Hmm.
You know, I'm interested in 14 years it took you to get that book done. That's a lot of hard work and perseverance, Carrie. That really is.
Yeah, I mean, there's also a lot of maybe obsession too. Like, I don't know. It's one of those things, like, I wrote it when I got my MFA and I was like 28, and I was like, okay, this is it. And then, like, looking back, if I had, it came out, if it had come out then, I would be embarrassed by it because I didn't have enough. Like, I wrote some of those stories at a young age, and then I edited them in my 40s. So it's so interesting to see what
Yeah.
has changed and how much time helped make them better stories, even
Yeah.
though it's so long. So for me, I'm just a slow writer.
There's actually a craft book out there called the Art of Slow Writing. So slow and steady might be the way to go. I think. You know. Are there any last words you want our audience to know? I want to let everyone know that all the books are available at Unsolicited Press website, and also at where good books are sold anywhere. I know you don't have a copy of your book because your book is not yet born, Meriwether, but Carrie, can you hold up your book, please?
Oh, yes. Yes, it's on its way. And this one came out in January. And thank you for getting me in I couldn't be here in January, but I appreciate you sneaking me in now.
Yeah. No, I said I would get you back in. So I want to thank everyone who's listened to us tonight. I want to remind everyone to please like and hit the like button and subscribe. And our next reading is 2 weeks from now. And let me see what date that is. That will be October 15th. 8:30 Eastern time and 5:30 Pacific time. So we hope you'll join us then. Thank you, Kerry and Meriwether, for sharing your work with us this
Thank you.
evening. Thank you, everyone who is watching out there, and we will see you next time. Bye bye. Good night, everyone.
Bye. Congrats, Meriwether.
Thank you.